oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, emergency, emergency, emergency. We're wrong, we've been wrong all along. All our predictions based on the future of civilization and how things might pan out have been based on a high heritability of intelligence, have been based on twin studies that have shown that heritability of intelligence is about 0.8. It's not, we're wrong. It's half that, it's less than half that, it's 0.4 or something. It's overwhelmingly environmental. We can build a utopia, we can do it. The left are right, the left were right all along. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh, hang on, no, wait, I didn't think about what they were saying as much as I should have. In fact, nothing's changed. And in fact, yeah, it is 0.8. Intelligence is very strongly genetic. Panic over. Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Jolly Heretic. Now, this is one of the things that can happen in academia, in research on intelligence, if clever people try and sound a bit too clever and beguile people with their clever-sounding words. But it can only do so for a while until people think about it and work out that actually, no, it's no big innovation at all. There has been a fascinating debate going on Twitter among those interested in intelligence in recent weeks. I'm talking now in November 2025. And for a while, to some people, it was looking like the heritability of intelligence was in fact what the left say. The heritability of intelligence was in fact extremely low. Now, this could mean, on the one hand, okay, if it's highly heritable, we can, if it's it's not very heritable, then we can build a utopia. We can change the environment and make everybody super clever. But on the other hand, of course, it makes you think that if the environment is collapsing and getting awful, then we will rapidly get less intelligent, and it will get worse either way. But as I'm going to show you in this video, no, the left are wrong as usual. And in fact, the original 0.8 heritability of intelligence is correct. Before I look at this, could you do me a favour? Could you please subscribe? Could you subscribe here on YouTube? Could you subscribe on my Substack? That's jollyheretic.com, where I put all those base stuff I can't put on YouTube, in-person interviews, blogs, vlogs, films I make, all kinds of malarkey. And where if you like what I do, you can help me support me for the cost of just a pint of beer a month. Okay, back to the video. So what's happened? In recent weeks, there's been a debate on Twitter about the heritability of intelligence. According to twin studies and twin adoption studies and twins raised apart and all this sort of thing, we can estimate the essentially the genetic component of intelligence to be about 0.8. Because we're controlling for environment, we're controlling for everything except genetics. And what these studies show, if you do a meta-analysis, is it's somewhere in the region of 0.8, could be a bit lower, could be a bit higher. In some places, it seems to be a bit higher. But overall, among European samples anyway, about 0.8. This means that intelligence is very strongly genetic. There's only a limited degree to which your environment can impact your intelligence, and that seems to be mainly based around an intellectually stimulating environment. And the interesting thing here is that people that are, as it were, genetically intelligent will tend to create for themselves an intellectually stimulating environment, thus pushing their intelligence to their phenotypic maximum, whereas people who are not very intelligent will not create a very intellectually stimulating environment, and they will not socialise with particularly intelligent people, and so their intelligence won't be pushed to its phenotypic maximum. Now, this, of course, means that in the heritability of intelligence in childhood is a lot lower than it is in adulthood, because in childhood, it's your parents or it's your school that are creating your environment, and they may well be somewhat more intelligent or less intelligent than you, whereas only as you become an adult do you start creating your own environment consistent with your own innate intelligence, and at this point, the heritability of intelligence therefore goes up to about 0.8. Now, the left don't like this. They really object to the fact. They have no arguments, but they really object to intelligence heritability being this high, because it implies that people are just genetically different and it's intractable and there's pretty much nothing you can do about it in terms of the environment. So they don't like it at all, and they come up with all kinds of fallacious arguments against it, such as to say that heritabilities from twin studies are speculation and don't prove anything. and the only way you can prove that intelligence heritability is 0.8 is to have a longitudinal study where you track people across time from childhood and alter their environments in interesting ways. This is ridiculously high level of proof demanded for an assertion, and of course they don't demand it with regard to things like the heritability of certain kinds of cancers. They just accept that and accept that you should live accordingly. From a pragmatic perspective, William James and all that, of course you must understand that if there's a 0.9 likelihood that if the heritability of the kind of cancer in your family is very high, you might get it, and you should act accordingly. And they'll accept that. They won't accept it in relation to intelligence because they don't like it. So it's highly inconsistent, it's epistemologically dishonest, and it's impractical. So anyway, 0.8 heritability to intelligence. Now what's happened is that two researchers have challenged this. One is called Alex Young. He is a statistical geneticist. He is the inventor of the relatedness disequilibrium regression model, where the idea is to pick out exactly how much genetic influence there is on various traits using family data. And the other one is someone called Sasha Gusa. Again, he's a geneticist at Harvard, I believe. Now, what they argue is that twin studies heavily overestimate the genetic contribution to traits, such as behavior and such as to intelligence. They heavily overestimate the degree to which these traits are caused by genes, are caused by specific genes. And what they argue, using family-based genetic methods, is that the genetic component, the genetic influence on these traits, such as intelligence, is a lot lower than we have previously thought using twin study models. And they do this by removing environmental effects and also by removing parental effects, which I'll tell you a bit more about in a minute. In doing that, you end up with a much smaller heritability. The genetic component of intelligence is halved, and it becomes about 0.4. Now, in that, this is a big difference, because these heritability models with twin studies would estimate, for example, the heritability of socioeconomic status to be about, or the heritability of personality to be 0.5, and intelligence 0.8. So we're pushing down intelligence to closer to the level of personality, and presumably we're pushing down personality to something very, very low. Now, this seems very unlikely, theoretically, that the genetics of intelligence could be so low, in that we know that intelligence is part of a general fitness factor, including genetic mental health and genetic physical health, which was being selected for across time, and in that intelligence is correlated even now with genetic mental health and genetic physical health. It seems really unlikely that a trait that is that significant could be so insignificant in terms of its heritability. But that's what they're saying. But then when you look into it, you realise what they've done. They remove genetic effects via socioeconomic status and genetic effects via parents. Now, what does this mean? Well, in nature, this is a fact. Humans mate assortatively. We pass on our genes directly by having children, but we also pass on our genes indirectly by mating with people that are optimally genetically similar to us. Not too genetically similar, that results in a greater likelihood of harmful double doses and therefore defective offspring. And not too genetically distant, because that means that genes that haven't worked together for a very long time have to work together with unpredictable results, or it means that genetic linkages break up, meaning that you're no longer as adapted to your particular ecology, or it means that complex traits that involve lots of genes working together, their functioning is interfered with because there are these genes that aren't used to working together. So we go for an optimum, and we assortatively mate for people that are optimally genetically similar to ourselves. With the result that any given couple will tend to be more genetically similar to each other in a population than chance would predict. And in particular, we assortatively mate for traits which are the more genetically influenced. So the more genetically influenced a trait is, the more likely we are to assortatively mate for it. So assortative mating on neck circumference, which is highly environmental, is low. Assortative mating on intelligence, which is highly genetic, is high. The result of that is then to increase the genetic component of intelligence and any other trait on which you assortatively mate, because you've got two people who are genetically relatively similar having a child together. Two people that are highly intelligent having a child together will result in a highly intelligent child, and the key reasons why that child will be highly intelligent will be genetic. Will be highly genetically intelligent because both his parents have assorted for each other and they are extremely intelligent. So assortative mating increases the genetic component of a trait. And indeed, in India, the heritability of intelligence is 0.9 rather than 0.8 because assortative mating is so high. 95% of Indians marry not just within caste, but within jat, i.e. within subcaste. A Patel marries a Patel, with the result that people that are genetically similar are strongly marrying each other, which elevates the genetic component of any given trait. Obviously, if an intelligent person marries a stupid person and they have a child, then the genetic component of that child and of the genetic component of why that child might end up being very intelligent is going to be low. It's going to be much more to do with environment because one of his parents is dragging down that intelligence. So that's it. That's all they've done. All they've done is control for parental genetic similarity, essentially. Control for parental IQ. But you can't do that because life doesn't work like that. There may be a world in which we can get people at random and force them to mate. And then, people that are genetically highly dissimilar and force them to mate. And then at that point, we end up with a low heritability genetic component to the intelligence in their offspring. But that is not the world we live in. That is not nature. You may argue that when you have an interracial relationship, that will reduce the heritability, but it doesn't. In fact, the evidence is that it's as though people that are different races that are in a relationship more strongly select for intelligence than do people of the same race. It's as though they overcompensate for physical genetic dissimilarity by bringing about very high mental genetic similarity. So even that doesn't work. Even people that marry interracially mate assortatively on psychological traits, and it is traits like that that are highly genetic. Remember, the brain is about 84% of the genome. So of course this is going to be highly genetic traits. So that's actually all they've done. And that's what I often find when there's some announcement that is in line with some left-wing dogma. That if you actually look into it and think about it, it is at best dishonest and manipulative. Sorry, at worst dishonest and manipulative. Or at best, it's just overcomplicating things and whatever. And that's what they've done here. They've controlled for parental intelligence. But you can't control for parental intelligence in nature. Humans mate assortatively. I suppose all animals probably mate assortatively, but we know that humans mate assortatively, and they mate assortatively on intelligence, and this is going to increase the degree to which intelligence in a child is high or low for genetic reasons rather than environmental reasons. So that's all that happened. That's all that's happened. So no panic. Nothing to see here, folks. Move along. Twin studies of traditional kind are correct. Intelligence is 0.8 heritable. Suck it up. Are you ready for the future of the West?